What is up, guys? Edward here. It's been a minute. MIDCONVO took a little break for like a month and a half or so, but with good reason. If you're listening on audio, should sound much crispier now. Like seriously, I don't know if you guys can tell, but the audio should sound super good now because I upgraded the microphones. And if you're watching on video, this space you see here is the new official MIDCONVO location. And today's guest I have with me here, my good buddy Daniel Bender. He is a full-time freelance photographer, videographer, just like a beast content creator. I'm super stoked for this episode. So Daniel, before we get going though, we got to roll the intro music. So let's do that.
All right.
All right, dude. Thank you so much for coming on to MIDCONVO.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
First guest to be in the official MIDCONVO station.
It's pretty sweet.
It's pretty sweet. It's
pretty cool.
I'll do a BTS video of it another time and show you guys all the gear we're actually using. But today we're going to be learning about Daniel and his journey on how he became a full-time content creator, what he's up to now, and hopefully some things that you guys can pick up in the middle of the conversation.
Yeah.
Some nuggets. So let's get going. Who are you, Daniel? What do you do? Man, just tell us about your story.
Yeah. So, like Edward said, I'm a full-time photographer and filmmaker here in the Seattle area. Growing up, I was interested in photography, but I was more interested in music. And so I'd have friends that had cameras and stuff and would make skateboard videos, but I was always more in hey, let me record the audio. And as I got a little bit older, got into filmmaking just a little bit more. I did a studio recording, but on the film side of it instead of the recording side of it, the audio side. And then when I went in the Marine Corps, I was like, man, I sold all my music gear, everything. I was like, I can't take this stuff, but what can I take with me? I can take a camera. So I got just a cheap little camera and would take photos of just where I was going and stuff like that. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, I went back to what I knew, which was music and production. Mm-hmm. And I was working down Federal Way at a church as their audio director.
Federal Way. Yeah. That's where I'm based out of.
And so I was working as their audio director and loved it. But I was always more interested when we would do filming for the TV show or any filming for announcements and stuff. And I was like, okay, what are these lights? What are these cameras? And I just I loved it. And so I left there Christmas of 2017.
It's not that long ago.
Yeah, a little over a year ago. And I had just found Peter McKinnon, on YouTube. And I was like, okay, this could be cool, and then I found, Search and Create, which was another channel. And I was like, man, this would be kind of cool. I wonder how I could do this. So January, I was, looking at other jobs and I couldn't find anything. I was looking at Microsoft. I was looking at other places and there was nothing that I wanted to do. I had just gotten engaged, a few months ago before that. And I was like, you know what? Either I'm going to go work for someone and I'm always going to have someone over looking over my shoulder. I'm going to have a boss that's telling me what to do, or I'm just going to bust my butt and work harder than anyone else. And I'm going to do this thing. Mm-hmm. So January rolled along and I spent about I don't know, maybe $6-7 grand on my first legit camera setup. I bought a Sony A7R III and some other gear. And I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And by March, I had upgraded that to Canon 1DX Mark II. I had returned the Sony and just had started building that platform a little bit. But I was like, okay, March is when I really hit it hard. I was I started knocking on businesses, doing free work, just as much work as I could do just to build a portfolio. Mm-hmm. And by the end of 2018, I had done 25 weddings, photography and video on 25 weddings. I had been able to work with just companies and clients that I never thought I could work with just because I wasn't going to stop. I wasn't going to take no for an answer. On one of my first jobs, I met the girlfriend of a owner of one of the agencies here in Seattle.
Marketing agency?
Yeah, marketing agency.
Yeah.
And she was like, hey, you should meet him. And I was like, cool. So I messaged him on Instagram, and he was like, sorry, I don't work with freelancers. And I was like, okay, yeah. And so I messaged him. I was like, well, dude, like, I'll make you money.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not working with you. So for 3 months, every week, I would message him on Instagram and be like, hey, give me a job. Like, I'll make you money. Finally, he messaged me. He's like, hey, man, like, if you leave me alone, I'll give you a job. So
persistence.
Yeah, man. So that job ended up being with Amazon, and I was the first one there. Showed up. I had my entire editing space set up. I was doing photos for an Alexa event, and man, the VIP of that division of Amazon loved what I did. I had live edits to them throughout the entire day. I was actually the first photographer to get take photos inside of the spheres.
Nice.
And so that just kind of set it off for me. Like, that was like, okay, it was a good thing for the agency, because it was like, this dude's not messing around. I just bust my butt. I was up every night till 2 a.m. editing all the photos, and then I was back at 5 a.m. the next morning. Just like,
that's the grind, dude.
Hustle. Yeah, man. Like, when you're starting out, even when you're, got a good base, you have to hustle. You have to. The moment you start relaxing is when someone else is going to take your spot. And so now moving into 2019, it's just been like, it's been a roller coaster,
Yeah.
And it's been one of the coolest things to see how, from where I was, at the end of 2017, quitting my job, to now where I am. And some that just like the clients that I get to work with now, being married. Getting married in 2018 was a huge like eye opener for me. I saw her walking down the aisle, and I had this like, oh crap, I have to like provide for somebody. It's different when you're just when it's just you don't really have any liabilities or anything, but when you have the responsibility of someone else, that's kind of scary. Yeah. And so I just like had about a month where I was like, okay, like, is this what I want to do? Should I go find another job? And the more I, got into it, I was like, no, this is what I want to do. Like, I don't want to have anybody looking over my shoulder. I don't want to have anybody telling me I can't do something. And so I just hit it hard. And now this year's set up for
doing really good.
Yeah, doing really good. So
that's awesome, man. Well, thanks for sharing your story, your brief story. Man, that was like a blur. Like, for people who are listening, I'm like trying to. I'm like trying to follow along too. I already know a lot of your story, because obviously we have talked before the podcast as well. But let's just backtrack a little bit, ask a few questions along your journey. So, how long you been married for now?
It's 10 months. On April 2nd.
That's awesome.
Or
Congrats.
April 1st. April 1st.
That's awesome. Well, that's obviously a big adult move.
Yes.
Big decisions. Now, I know that you obviously, for those of you guys listening as well, if you guys actually have seen Daniel's kit and all the gear this guy owns, he owns so much gear. Like, you would be mind blown at how much gear he owns. But he's not one of those people who just buy it, and then it doesn't pay for itself. Like, you definitely work hard, and you've paid for all the gear that you've owned. So did you ever go to film school, is the question?
No, I did not. I was looking at Full Sail. And I happened to have a couple buddies that went there, and they were like, don't go. They're like, it's a degree, but you don't need it. It's just going to be like a waste of your money. And so I didn't.
Went. So how'd you learn? How'd you learn all the technical things like lighting? You kind of had a background in audio, so that's kind of where you picked that up.
Yeah, audio I was set. I had done work with TV stations and studio work before.
But you still, like lighting.
With, lighting and camera.
Yeah.
YouTube University.
Peter McKinnon, Maddie Hapoya, all these people. Yeah.
All these guys, man. Like, but it was true. I just literally every day, because I had no other job, I was out for like 16, 20 hours a day, taking photos for free, doing videos for free for people. Just like, hey, like, this is what I do. Like, do you guys want something? And then getting their feedback. And like, looking at my work then to now, I'm like, oh man, why would anybody even want free work? Yeah. But you just have to, like, you have to accept the criticism.
So you basically like broke through, in my opinion, that barrier that people face. I think like you were saying how you didn't want to work a job, you didn't want someone looking over your back, telling you when to come in, when to leave, all those kind of things. And I feel like everyone can relate to that, right? If you're listening to this right now, you probably work a job.
Yeah.
And chances are you probably hate your job. And you probably have a passion doing something, which is why you're listening to MIDCONVO right now.
Yeah.
But when you kind of jump that, that big gap in between, and you pulled the Band-Aid off, so to speak, how much of that is like luck or opportunity? I don't want to call it luck. I mean, obviously it's like not everyone believes in that, but how much of it do you think is like timing and opportunity? Because this whole podcast, by the way, today's episode is titled "Am I Doing Enough?" I mean, it's kind of contradicting to what we're talking about, because you've done so much stuff. Yeah. So clearly you've done enough. But more specifically, like, at what point where you're like, oh, man, this is enough to make the jump, or this isn't enough, or maybe that's why you made the jump, because you're like, I need to do more. I need to keep growing, keep doing stuff. So what did that look like for you?
Yeah.
Like, at what point? Was it literally when you woke up one day, you're like, all right, I'm doing this, quitting my job, I'm at full send, or was it like a gradual thing?
It was, I mean, I think it's been a kind of a gradual thing my whole life. I've always wanted to own my own business. My dad owned his own business almost my whole life growing up. So that entrepreneurial spirit was always there. And, working when I got out of the Marine Corps, it's like, okay, this isn't enough money to support a family, to do what I want to do. And like, I'm seeing all these people. I think comparison is a great drive factor, but it can also crush you. But comparison at that point in my life was like the most driving factor for me, because I was like, I don't want to be doing the same thing and have never impacted anyone for the rest of my life, And so, going into it every day was just like, okay, like, I'm seeing what everyone else around me is doing, and how can I be doing better, or how can I be doing more? And even still now, like, if I, my wife will kind of check me sometimes. She'll be like, hey, like, you're working too much, or hey, like, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing, And it's like, oh man, like, I need to step up my game, or it's like, hey, I need to slow down a bit. I think.
How does that radar look for you? Like, at what point where you're like, do you know yourself when like you're working too much? Like, what does that look like? I guess like burnout. Like, what does that look like for you?
For me, when I start getting frustrated with the people closest around me, like, they'll like, if I'm working too much, I'll get kind of snappy sometimes, especially like with my wife. She's my like biggest radar, because if I notice that I'm like getting snappy with her, it's like, okay, I need to check myself, or check my attitude, and like make sure that I'm putting her and my other priorities first, because at the end of the day, she's number one priority, and work and everything else is second. If your wife's listening to this, kudos points. Seriously. She probably will listen to this, but man, she got a good one. Yeah, man. But okay, cool. So I know we're kind of next topic, and we talked about it briefly before. Kind of jumping back from when you were saying like, hey, let's do this full-time film thing, and then you're also kind of getting married around that time. I know that you were like about $100,000 in debt. Yeah. I'm gonna repeat that. You were $100,000 in debt, and then you're thinking about doing this whole filmmaker thing. Some people don't even do the filmmaker thing because they're like, I only have $2,000 in my bank account, let alone not having that much money, and then also being over 6 digits in debt. Yeah. How did you come out of that? Like, you obviously are in the positive now, and you're buying gear, and you're kind of growing your business, but how did you get out of $100,000 in debt, and in what time frame did you do that? Yeah. So when I got out of the Marine Corps, I made some stupid decisions with credit cards when I was in the Marine Corps. So I got out of the Marine Corps with about $100,000 in debt. And getting married, working up to getting married, my wife's dad was actually like, hey, I went to ask him for his permission, and he said, no, you're in too much debt. Oh. And I was like, oh man. So like, serious. I had to get my stuff together. Yeah. And so up to that point of getting married, I was just like, I didn't go out to eat, didn't go do anything like which people, do for fun. I just hustled. And so when it came time to start my business and to pursue this, full career, this full-time opportunity of working for myself and really just being in control of my life, for me, there was no other option. It was either I'm going to work for someone else and make 40, 50, maybe 60,000 a year and be stuck at paying off that $100,000, you know, over the next 5 to 10 years, you know, because I'm not going to be able to do anything else, or my life is up to me and I'm going to, you know, work as hard as I can to do that off. And last year we were able to pay off a lot, you know, and we have just a little bit more. You know, we have just basically our cars, and that's about it. And those will be paid off. We'll be completely debt free, and you know, by the end of this year, which will be amazing.
Hold up. So hold on. What is that? That's like 2 years?
Yeah.
You paid off $100,000, almost $100,000 in 2 years.
Yep.
That's crazy.
And you know, even now, like we don't go out to concerts or parties or do dinners every single night of the week. Like we're very strict on our budget. And you know, you mentioned earlier, like I have a lot of gear and I'm a big gearhead. But I only buy gear if I know it's going to pay itself off.
True. And
you know, every piece of gear I look at, I have to look at, okay, how often am I renting this? How often am I needing this? Where, you know, in the next 6 months, what clients do I want to work with, and what gear do I need to work with those clients? Because, you know, like you don't need gear to be a filmmaker, to be a photographer like that. You know, you don't need the best, but depending on who you want to work with, gear does talk, you know, and it does take your production level and it inspires you to be better. And so when I'm looking at gear, it's like, okay, you know, how soon will it pay itself off? Is it going to make the jobs I do higher paying? And is it going to inspire me to continue doing this? And so I think that's, you know, that's one of the number one things that, because I got myself in so much debt, that's been one of the number one, like, considerations that I look at every time I spend money on myself and on my business. You know, you have to be able to invest in yourself for other people to invest in you. And yeah,
that's really awesome. Yeah, I mean, like, I would have to agree. Like, if you can't buy the gear, like, if you're buying gear and you're like, man, it's going to take me, you know, 4 or 5 months to pay this camera off, you probably shouldn't be buying that camera.
Yeah.
If you're going to be buying any kind of new gear, you should be able to pay that off probably, like, within the next 2-3 invoices they have to send out. And so that's a rule of thumb for everyone listening. And that's not just, that doesn't just go in the filmmaking space. That's like anything, any creative space or industry requires gear, whether you're a graphic designer, photographer, filmmaker, anything really, it requires gear. Yeah. And who doesn't want cool, nice, sleek looking stuff? Yeah. But it's definitely, there's a timing for everything, and you don't want to purchase stuff on a whim like me and buy this whole podcast setup that you're listening to right now. That's funny. Okay. So the next question that I have actually is, you briefly mentioned that you've been able to work with some pretty cool clients now. You've worked with companies like Lulu Lemon, Nike, Reebok, and you recently just told me right before this that you landed a gig with the Cardinals baseball team. So clearly you're working with some high profile clients. How do you land those clients? Like, when I was first starting out, if you told me, okay, your goal or your job is to get a gig with Nike in a year, I would be like clueless. I'm still kind of clueless. Like, how do you even go about landing clients like that? Because Nike obviously isn't going to knock on freelancers' door and be like, hey, do you want to film this $20,000 budget commercial? Yeah. Like, what does that look like?
Man, I think it's just consistency. So when I first started out, one of the first companies I went to was SoulCycle. And I went to them and I researched the heck out of their company. And I found out that all their marketing and all their content is driven from New York. They use an agency only out of New York. They don't do anything for their West Coast studios or any other studios. All their content is from there. So I went to their local studio, which was at Bellevue at the time. Now they have Bellevue and South Lake Union. And I went to them and I was like, hey, like, you know, I see this is the case. Do you guys want content for your own studio? And they're like, yeah, you know, we don't know if we can do that because everything's from New York. I was like, well, how about this? I was like, I'll do work for the next 3 months for free. And if corporate likes it, I want a contract. And they were like, okay, you know? And I was like, no, I'm serious. Like, I'll work every week. I'll come in and do photos for your entire, like, for your instructors, and like your staff. Every week they do what's called Soul Style. So all the new clothes come out every month, and they do stuff like that. So I would come in and do photo shoots for that, and as well as like their instructors' personal stuff. And 3 months later, when they launched South Lake Union, I got my first, contract with them, and I did an entire grand opening video and photos and everything. And since then, that was really the door that opened up almost everything for me. From there, I was able to work with Nike, and from there, contacts with Lulu Lemon.
Wow.
And everything else that's followed really came from SoulCycle, and then the people that I met along the way, just being able to network and be like, hey, like, this is who I am, this is what I do.
Yeah.
How can I help you? And then researching, like finding not a weakness, but finding where you can help benefit them.
Yeah.
And for, at the beginning, SoulCycle was like, hey, I can benefit these West Coast studios, and so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that ties in really nicely to the am I doing enough question, because, you just said that you went to SoulCycle and offered them 3 months. I don't even think I could even do that. Dude, like, that's crazy. So you basically did content for 3 months for free. And then obviously that paid off in the long run, like heavily, because you work with some pretty big profile clients after that. Can I ask how much you got paid for that first grand opening stuff? Like when like SoulCycle actually started to hire you?
Yeah. So
what did that look like?
Yeah. So for that first video, it was $3,000 for that opening video and shoot. And part of that was all I asked for. At that time, I thought that was like a ton of money.
I mean, it still is.
It
for
still
some
is a
people.
ton of money.
Yeah.
Like if I have a job in 2 weeks, it's like $3,000. That's a ton of money.
Yeah.
And so you just have to put it in perspective. But at that time, I was like, man, like I can make $3,000 doing this. And so that was like one of the biggest eye openers. Was like, man, like this can be real.
Yeah. I think when I first had my first $1,000 client, I was like, oh snap, $1,000 for a video. This is crazy.
Yeah.
But if you're listening to this and you're trying to get into filmmaking or anything creative, just know that the numbers that me and Daniel are talking about right now are stuff that's like where we are kind of now. So keep in mind, like Daniel obviously did free work for 3 months. When I was first charging videos, I was doing videos for like $200, $300, and I was like, that's where I started at. So and it's a common problem that a lot of filmmakers first make is when they first start, they come out the gate guns blazing, like I'm about to make 2K off this video, I'm gonna get into wedding and start making a ton of money, which is like it's all about timing and opportunity. But if you take a more humble approach and you're like, hey, I just want to bring value to you, it'll pay off so much more in the long run. Yeah. Because you just start somewhere, and like you said, new doors will open up. I think something
you said, like bringing value. I think that is the number one thing that anyone can do if you're looking to work with someone, whether it's a individual, a couple, a business. If you can find a way to bring value, and not just value that you think, but value that will really connect with their company or who they are, that will take you places you never thought you could go. Being able to, one, identify where you can place that value, and then how to act on it is huge. Because people, like all of us, you want to know that I have your best interest in, my heart and what I'm doing, and vice versa. Like, we're friends, but when you first meet people, you don't know them from anybody else. So if you can portray that value and that friendship, and connect with people on a personal level, even if it's one little thing, that'll grow you and your business immensely.
Dude, something that actually, on that same note of value, something that's been working really well for me that I kind of want to give a tip to all you guys is it's been working really well. So whenever I'm on a call with a client and I'm trying to close them, whenever the numbers game comes up, because it always comes up, they'll be like, how much you charge, what's the budget, and things like that. I always do this. I always say, hey, Joe or John or whoever the name is, I'm so open talking about numbers, but I just want to put that aside real quick. What can I do for you? Like, what do you need? Let's not talk about numbers right now. Like, how can I bring you value? And then I will fit in the numbers from what you need. And they're always like, oh wow, like they actually care about what I need, and he doesn't want to just send me an invoice. And that's been working really, really well. So just kind of piggybacking off what you're saying, offering value is like the number one way, I think, to close clients.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like with that, whether it's weddings or if you're doing social, like 1 minute social videos, or whatever your market is that you're wanting to step into, having those base packages like we always do, those are great, but the amount of times that people go with just one of those packages is so few.
Mm-hmm.
Like being able to customize and offer that customization to clients and potential clients really lets them know, like you said, that you care about them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something for anyone watching or listening. If you haven't done that, man, like make your base packages, you know, figure out what is worth your time and also worth someone else's money and
Mm-hmm.
time. But then also be available to customize things for whether it's their budget. You know, sometimes going over and above, even though it's more work for you over someone else's budget, you never know when that's going to pay off. I can't even like tell you the amount of times that I've done free work or work for so little money that I thought it was the biggest waste of my time.
Mm-hmm.
But I did it with a good heart and did it just because I wanted like to help
Mm-hmm.
whoever I was working with, and how many times it's come back and just blessed me like I could never imagine.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's, you reap what you sow, especially when it
Mhm.
comes to that kind of stuff. And this is a little hack for you guys. If there's a gig that comes your way and you don't want to shoot it and you're like, it's not really, I'm feeling it,
Mhm.
like triple your prices
Yeah.
and then make it worth it for you. So if it's like $1,000 and they're like, okay, we're down, and you're like, I'm not feeling it, be like, just charge them $3,000 and let's see if they bite. And if they do, then you just made $2,000 more dollars
Yeah.
on a gig that like you didn't really want to do, but now you're making $2,000 more dollars. So that's kind of what I've been doing now too. So if I get gigs my way, okay, my clients are listening. I love all you guys. I love all the clients I work with. But if you do get a client that you're not really too enthused about, just like double, triple your prices, and then you'll be surprised at how many people want to book you.
Yeah.
So something that I was dealing with, and I feel like a lot of people do deal with when they're first starting out, is resources. Like,
Mhm.
where do I go for help?
Yeah.
And you know, they do the same things. Like they'll slide into people's DMs, they'll watch YouTube videos, and kind of get the blanket advice from a lot of places.
Yeah.
Get a mentor, right? But obviously you've grown a lot, like in
Mhm.
terms of your filmmaking skills. Where would you say are like your top 3 places that you know to have grown your skills? And I don't say like YouTube or
Yeah.
like ask your buddies, like specifically, because I have like my own 3 too that I can
Mhm.
share, but I want to hear your 3, like to the T. Where did you go to build your skills
Mhm.
as a filmmaker and all the knowledge you know right now?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think number 1 was watching other people's content. So like watching movies that I liked, watching YouTube, you know, but specifically I would watch Peter McKinnon. Specifically, I would watch Maddie, and there was other people, you know, and different content creators on Instagram that I would like, people around me, and I would specifically just go watch and look for their styles. And like, you don't have to take everything that they do, because my style is not like anyone else that I was watching or like that I was looking at before. And then for me, I found a group of like 3 other friends, but at the time they weren't really friends, just people that I saw that were creating all the time. And I reached out to them. I was like, hey, like, can I just like shadow you? Can I come just watch what you're doing and see what you're doing? And literally, and I learned this from doing audio stuff, but I didn't ask questions when I was there. I would just watch, because normally 99% of the time, if you just watch and stay silent, whatever questions you have that will be answered, and then you'll look really smart because you never asked the question and you just know. And so specifically, I would watch other people's content and study it, not just watch it and be like, oh, that was a cool video, but study it. Like, okay, how did they get the shot? Was it, you know, at 24 frames, or was it at 120? Like, was it did I like the slow motion, or did I like the faster paced stuff? Did I like the angles they were using? You know, did I like them taking the camera and pointing straight up to give this like really big power shot? Or did I like them using a really tight, compressed focal length where all the background was blurred out and like it was just the, you know, like super shallow depth of field? And then studying other people's content for like style. So whether it's colors, if you want really dark, moody colors, or if you want like really unsaturated, uncontrasted, you know, decontrasted,
monochrome looking.
Yeah. And then just practice. You know, I think I've learned more from my clients than really anybody else. and their feedback, and then just my own feedback, like reviewing, because I'm always going back. I have like 60 terabytes of footage and stuff, and I'm always going back and looking at it like, hey, what could I have done better, or how can I how can I use what I did there in the stuff I'm doing now. So I think, to recap, studying footage, studying themes, and then looking back at what I was doing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very, very good answer.
Yeah.
Very good answer. It was a tough one. I kind of threw a curveball at you there.
Yeah, that's okay. I hope that's not too vague.
No, it wasn't vague. I think that was more like to the T than most people would give answers. Like usually you always hear like to watch YouTube and go out and practice and try new things, but still like blanket, But I like that. I like the answer you gave, very in depth. How important do you think it is to have like a community or mentors? Do you think you could do it all on your own, or it's very crucial that you have people that you're surrounded by that create videos too?
I think it's
whatever space you're in.
Yeah, I think whatever space you're in, you want to find people that are doing the same thing. There's two different ways you can look at it. You can look at it everyone else's competition, and if you give information or if they give information, you or they are just going to steal it, and then you're going to lose clients, you're going to lose opportunities. Which I think if that's the way you go about your business, you're not going to last very long. I think the most impactful people and the most powerful or the most influential people, that's probably the better word, influential people within a market or a division or however you place yourself in the industry, they're the ones that are sharing, whether it's sharing your knowledge, sharing information, sharing techniques, sharing just your life or your story. That is the biggest way to connect with people. It all comes back to how you can connect with people and how you can relate. You can be like starring on, as the DP or the director of every major film, but if you never shared any of your knowledge with anyone, no one would ever want to work with you. Like, you would have no legacy. You would never have you would have all these people looking at you like, wow, you're this great person, but you would never have anyone that ever knew you or anyone that ever could vouch for you or be like, hey, like this person helped me. And so I think surrounding yourself with people that are better than you, you'll gain friends and you may surpass them in your knowledge, or you may surpass what they're doing as far as like the amount of money you're bringing in or the clients you're working with. But always look for people that you want to emulate. It may not be everything, but one thing you can always learn is, even if you do not like anything anybody does, you can always take at least one good thing from it and model that in how you are and how you act and how you do business moving forward.
No, for sure. Right on. I think that's a good one. And especially trying to find those people and that specific group of people that you're trying to, work with and be inspired by. Guys, don't do this thing. Don't hit up people that aren't in your level and just say like, hey, let's collab. I think that's the worst thing you could do. I think maybe you can vouch for this too, but not that that's a bad thing. I think collabs are great. Like right now we're collaborating. But it's really important to kind of understand your market and where you are as a creator, no matter what you're doing, because by asking someone, let's collab, it kind of sounds like, hey, you're basically shooting yourself in the foot, because you're kind of saying like, hey, you're better than me and I suck. Can I just like leech on your stuff and learn from you? So instead of trying to accomplish the same thing, instead of saying like, hey, can we collab, say something like you did. I like how you said like, hey, can I just come? I won't ask questions. Can I just watch what you're doing? And then try to build something there. Like, don't try to build something like in the DMs and say like, hey, let's collab. Because they take collabs, person you're probably DMing, they probably take collabs more seriously. They're probably like, if we're collabing, then we're exposing each other, etc.
We're each gaining and we're each giving.
Exactly. And so kind of going back to the value thing, you want to be able to offer value, but before you get to that point, if you don't have any value to offer quite yet, don't just say like, let's collab. Say something like, hey, can I just show up? Do you need any help? I'll take your photos, maybe for your Instagram. You don't need to pay me. I'll just show up and I'll just learn from you, and I'll give you photos for your Instagram. That's like a surefire way. Who doesn't want photos for themselves?
Exactly.
So if you guys are listening, want to come out and take some photos of MIDCONVO podcast,
I need an editor.
Come through. But no, I think, I'm sure you get a lot of people asking you like, hey, let's collab, let's work together. But check out their stuff. We live in a world where it literally only takes 2 seconds to glance at someone's profile to see if it's someone that you resonate with.
You can basically do a full background check on someone within 10 minutes.
2 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
10 seconds. Like literally 2 clicks and you already know what they do, what camera they shoot with, who they hang around, and who follows them.
Yeah.
It's pretty kind of crazy.
I think that's a good point. I actually had a company hit me up, DMs on Instagram 2 weeks ago, and they're like, hey, like, we love your page. We love your content. We'd love to work with you. And I was like, okay, I was entertaining it. And they were like, okay, cool. Like, this is what our business does. And I was like, okay, that's really cool. Like, they give a huge percentage of their income to a few different organizations and charities. Like, that's really cool. And they're like, oh, but we're going to give you this free item, but you need to pay for shipping and you need to pay for all this other stuff. I'm like, okay, well, you have 3,000 followers. I have 37,000.
Mm-hmm.
You're making me pay for something that I'm never going to use. Why should I do this? I just straight up asked him. I was like, how does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that would be like me coming to your business and be like, hey, I don't have any money, but I want this, and this. But hey, I'm gonna just like post a selfie with you, or hey, I'm gonna tell my friend down the street that you're here. I was like, that doesn't make sense. If you would come to me, if they had come to me like, hey, like we want to offer this to you, and man, we would love like a shout out or something. I'd be like, sure, yeah, that's awesome. Or like, hey, like, we would love to, offer you a discount on this, or however it is, but
just don't come out the gate.
Out the gate. So like, hey, let me use you for my advantage. Yeah. You never want to use people or use businesses.
You don't want to come off that way at all.
No.
Yeah. How do you view social media? I mean, obviously, like this is kind of, I talk about this with everyone who comes onto the show, but how important is social media in this creative space? And where do you stand with social media?
So social media,
Instagram specifically.
Yeah. So I'm not on Twitter. I have a Twitter account, but I don't use it. I've never understood Twitter, so I don't use it. Mm-hmm. Facebook, it's like more like for like my family and stuff. I don't really post anything. Instagram's where all my business is from. Probably like 70% of my work comes from Instagram.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of shocking, actually.
And people will hit me up or email me, and like I'll get a lot of stuff through word of mouth, but it all roots from Instagram and my content on there.
Interesting.
Which I don't know if that's normal. A lot of people, that's not as normal.
Well, because I'm about to post a video tomorrow talking about how that's not normal.
Oh,
so that's interesting.
Yeah.
We got like opposing opinions here.
Yeah.
Because I basically think that you don't need a following.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Yeah. Or like, I guess you don't really need Instagram to grow a business, and we can agree on that.
Yeah, 100%.
But I feel like a lot of people get caught up in thinking that Instagram will bring immediate like success. Or if you have like 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, then you're like, boom, I should be getting brands paying me 10K, 20K like out the gate, which is like totally not true.
It's not true.
And also, not only, even if it is true, why would you want to build a business off of that? Like you want something more worthwhile. You want to build something that will like last,
sustain, and
even because like we had that Facebook Instagram blackout a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
Like a whole day it wasn't running, and I
thought my phone just wasn't working.
Yeah. And I had like a glimpse of what it could potentially be like if there was no Instagram.
Awesome.
Yeah. Like if Instagram and Facebook wasn't around, like where we'd be.
Yeah.
And like I would be okay. We would be okay because we run a businesses outside of social media, but all these like people who are trying to get clout and get all these brand sponsorships, like you're screwed because you're not gonna make any money. You're gonna get back to probably bagging groceries because you're not an influencer anymore.
Yep.
So not dogging on influencers. I think it's cool that you can like ride that wave now, but that's why I'm saying it's so important that first, if you're not an influencer, utilize this time to not be an influencer and build a business.
And build your business.
And then if you are an influencer, utilize this time to leverage your audience and build a business that's off your audience. Mm-hmm. Don't just like rely only on audience or strive for like becoming an influencer. Because I feel like it's the new fad, the new thing to do. And it's really not going to like help in the long run.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Like when I say 70% of my business comes from social media, Instagram is where I use it as my portfolio. Yeah. So like I have my website, but I don't invest a lot in my website, and that makes sense. that's probably a negative on me just because I haven't taken the time. Normally I make excuses. I'm too busy.
Too busy, man. You're too busy.
So if you're a web developer and you love web design, let me know because I could use it. But social media, Instagram for me is where that's like my portfolio. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I send anybody that reaches out to me, I send them immediately to Instagram. And then that return coming back to me, I guess that's more of that 70%. But it all comes back to people, having that word of mouth business, growing the foundation of your business. You can, if you're an influencer, you can literally go from 0 to 100,000, 1 million followers like that, or whatever the case may be. But if you've never built that foundation, the moment that one thing goes away, it'll destroy you, and I found that out last summer. I came back from my honeymoon and I had invested all my resources into one like major client and one agency. And when that client left that agency, I had no work. My entire summer work was gone. And I had to figure out real quick, okay, this is time where retention, clients become huge, and clients that, set your base, whatever your base salary or your base work, whatever that is, come into play. Mm-hmm. And social media at that point, that's not going to be,
it's not going to help you.
It's not going to help you. Yeah. You have to be able to connect with people and show that value, and then work harder than anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is it pretty surreal to be where you are now? Like, I know that everyone tries to, like, especially in the creative space, when you're kind of crushing it, you're doing well, everyone likes to brush it off, like they're sending out these fat invoices like it's a normal everyday thing. But even me, like, sometimes when I send these invoices, I'm like, holy crap, like, I don't know if I would even pay this to myself for a video like this. So is it kind of surreal to be where you are now? Like, is it kind of everything you had imagined it would be if to send out your first $5,000-$6,000 invoice and you get that wire to your bank account? You're like, wow, $6,000.
Yeah.
Like,
I think every time that money does come in, I'm like, oh man, whew, like it does sit me back.
How do you stay grounded though?
Also humbling. I do a lot of free work.
Okay.
Still, like, I think one of the biggest things you can do is just give back. Mm-hmm. And so like my gym, I do free work for them, every month,
which led to more work. Ironically.
So this is one of the biggest things that I love.
Yeah, we should talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about free work. If you aren't doing free work, you need to do free work. Mm-hmm. And really only for the fact of just like make yourself better. Bless people and give people. Just give. Mm-hmm. I think there's a book called The Go-Giver, which if you haven't read it, you should go read it. It's all about just giving of yourself and giving of your resources and your talents to just help other people, and you'll be amazed at what happens. But so based off of this, my gym, CrossFit, I've been in CrossFit since I was a kid, and so I was like, hey, I want to come in for this CrossFit Open these next 5 weeks and do free work. Every week I'll do photos and highlight video for you guys. And out of that, I've gotten 3 jobs, and there's 2 more potential jobs just from people who either saw those videos or go to the gym that own their own businesses or have connections. And those jobs, just from that, let me purchase some pretty cool new gear.
Yeah.
And paid for it.
Yep.
And because of just that free work where I had no intention of making any money at all, like I was like, cool, like this is just what I love. This is a passion for me. Someone I met through this, his life motto is driven by passion. And I think that's really cool. If you do everything you do with passion, just like with this, passion is really like the best word for it. You just do it with this drive. Like people are going to notice and people are going to feel this vibe off of you. Mm-hmm. And they're going to want to work with you. If you have the smile on your face and you just like love working with people and you love what you do, there's always going to be bad days and there's going to be days where you're like, man, like, can I do this? Mm-hmm. But if you just, you hustle and you work with that passion, people are going to want to work with you. And that's what happened with this. It was cool.
It's cool because the free work led to more work, ironically. So I think you just need to open all doors. Mm-hmm. Don't be bougie about who you're working with, and don't be closed-minded. Yeah. That's the most expensive thing that you can have is a closed mind. So I hope for those of you guys listening and watching, you guys picked up some really good nuggets that Daniel had for us tonight. If you guys would like, I'd really appreciate it to go onto iTunes and leave a 5-star review on this podcast. It's going to help us get to where we need to go. And I just have so many things planned for this podcast in the future, having more people like Daniel on board. And if there's anybody that you guys want on the podcast, make sure to leave it in the review too. And we can try to filter through those as well. But yeah, man, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, dude, thank you. It was great.
We'll probably hang out or something.
Yeah.
After. Later.
Cool.